Government expenditure on civil servant pensions exceeds $50 billion. Police arrest parents in suspected child neglect case. And tensions escalate in the Middle East as US and Iran continue to exchange fire. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The government announces expenditures on pensions for civil servants and judicial officers in the previous financial year exceed $50 billion. This as the number of those eligible for the pension scheme this year is set to increase by 170,000. Timothy Lee reports.
Under the government pension scheme, civil servants and judicial officers appointed before June 1, 2000 are eligible for pension benefits until their death. This, as Secretary for the Civil Service Ingrid Yeung notes, beneficiaries of such pensions over the past 5 years have increased from 150,000 to 163,000. She adds expenditures on the pension scheme have increased to over $50 billion. With expectations of some 5,000 additional individuals receiving pensions this financial year, authorities will have to allocate another $16 billion. The eligibility of civil servants contracted under the old pension scheme is guaranteed by the Pension Benefits Ordinance. Their pensions were determined by their salary at the time of departure from their positions and are adjusted for inflation on a yearly basis. Lawmaker Junius Ho acknowledges the surge in expenditure on the pension program, but he says while opinions may vary, they must all respect the spirit of the basic law. The Civil Service Bureau, meanwhile, says measures are in place to ensure civil servants are not paid extra and their pensions suspended upon death. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Authorities arrest a couple on suspicion of child neglect after they failed to acquire a birth certificate for a baby boy they claim to have given birth to at home. They also refused to send him to the hospital for a health check for over 1 month. The government notes initial investigations show the baby did not suffer from any injuries, adding the parents agreed to provide their DNA samples to be matched with the infant. The boy has been taken into protective care. Timothy Lee has more.
A cross-departmental government task force addresses the latest situation on the baby boy named Danny and the couple. Senior Social Work Officer Stephanie Lee says they have sought for a protection order for the infant at court, adding that judicial authorities have already arranged the boy to be temporarily taken into protective care.
The Social Welfare Department pays great importance on this case because it involves the safety and welfare of a newborn child. Since learning of the incident, we immediately tried various methods to reach out the two individuals who came to be the parents, including contacting their family members and people who had previously interacted with them. We have multiple home visits at different times at the address they provided.
As of now, the parents have yet to acquire a birth certificate for the boy, primarily due to their refusal to provide proof for blood relations with the infant. The police say the pair have agreed to provide their DNA samples to be compared with the infant's and are awaiting the government's lab's test results. The two were earlier arrested on suspicion of child neglect. The couple also started an online campaign seeking help after their daughter, named Lily, was taken into protective care by Swedish authorities during their stay there. Local immigration authorities said they have been communicating with their Swedish counterparts to determine the identity and location of the girl, and will decide on their course of action after receiving a reply from the Scandinavian nation. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee continues his visit in Kazakhstan as cooperation agreements are being signed between higher education institutions in Hong Kong and Kazakhstan. The ceremony took place at Nazarbayev University in Astana, capital of Kazakhstan, where the Kazakh University signed a memoranda of understanding with the Hong Kong Polytechnic University and the Education University of Hong Kong, witnessed by Chief Executive John Lee and officials from both sides. The university was named after Nursultan Nazarbayev, Kazakhstan's first president after the Central Asian country gained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, who had ruled the nation for nearly 3 decades. The hall was also where President Xi Jinping first proposed the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013.
These agreements will deepen academic and research collaboration. They will strengthen people-to-people ties between Hong Kong and Kazakhstan. Let me add that Hong Kong has its first Central Asian restaurant opened just a few months ago. And I always believe that food is a place's best ambassador. I look forward to Kazakh restaurants filling up the streets of Hong Kong so that the over 5,000 Kazakh students can help introducing their food culture in Hong Kong.
The memoranda aim to strengthen academic exchanges through the joint supervision and recruitment of high-caliber doctoral students. Academic institutions from the two places will jointly organize seminars and academic conferences, offer short-term training programs, and expand student exchange opportunities. The initiatives are expected to attract more students from Central Asia to pursue higher education in Hong Kong. Early in the day, John Lee visited Kazakhstan's Sovereign Wealth Fund together with representatives from major businesses and institutions. Meanwhile, Mary Hyun, Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Hong Kong and Greater China and North Asia, underscores Hong Kong's role as the world's largest offshore renminbi liquidity pool, handling around 75% of global offshore renminbi transactions. Iran and the United States are once again exchanging fire in the Persian Gulf, with the Revolutionary Guard launching missiles towards Kuwait and Bahrain. Tehran puts blame on the Americans disabling an unladen oil tanker transiting international waters towards Iran's Kark Island as it tries to run the blockade. This report from Danny Zhou.
Following the halting of merchant vessel the Lian Star a few days ago, the Botswana-flagged MT Lexi heading towards Iran's main crude oil loading port was stopped by a U.S. warplane that fired a Hellfire missile into the engine room on Tuesday. The U.S. CENTCOM releases footage of the oil tanker being hit by a projectile and says it happened after the ship's crew ignored repeated warnings over a 24-hour period. Media reports say the Lexi has been added to Washington's sanctions list for its alleged involvement in the Iranian oil trade. Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard responds to the stopping by striking a vessel identified as Panaya they say is linked to the U.S. and Israel, and targeting two U.S. bases and regional neighbors with missiles and drones. Yet, U.S. officials state the Iranian attacks all failed to hit their intended targets. The missiles fired at Kuwait fell short or broke apart en route, and multiple drones launched at the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain were intercepted immediately. The flare-up of hostilities reportedly caused several injuries and led to the suspension and diversion of flights at Kuwait International Airport. The US and Iran indicated last week that they've reached a tentative initial agreement to halt the war, but it was not signed off. US President Donald Trump insists their negotiations have not stopped, though Iranian media reports Tehran has not communicated with Washington for several days. When asked by Senator Chris Murphy during Tuesday's Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing whether the U.S. will swap sanctions relief as a carrot to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, Secretary of State Marco Rubio declares any such relief for Iran will come after nuclear concessions.
They have to commit to very specific negotiations on the disposition of the highly enriched uranium that still is buried deep in a mountain somewhere. They have to agree on negotiating severe and long-term limitations and or cancellation of enrichment.
Rubio says there are indications Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei is increasingly engaged with U.S. negotiations at some level. At the same hearing, Maryland lawmaker Chris Van Hollen blasts Rubio for the nation's actions taken in Iran, accusing the Trump administration of entering the war on behalf of Israel.
Turns out he finally found a president who was both stupid and reckless enough to join him. The president told us 91 days ago that we had, quote, won the war in Iran. Last year, he told the country Iran's key enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Was that false? Let's face it, Mr. Secretary, the Trump foreign policy has become a dumpster fire.
Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Israeli strikes across southern Lebanon this week have killed at least 10 people and wounded 131 others, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. Meanwhile, the United Nations once again condemns the continued fighting in Lebanon following an Emergency Security Council session on the conflict. Elsewhere, as fighting intensifies, a new round of political talks between Israel and Lebanon in Washington is underway. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Israeli strikes across southern Lebanon this week have killed at least 10 people and wounded 131 others, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. The ministry says in a statement that Israeli airstrikes on the area surrounding the Jabal Amal hospital in the southern city of Tyre killed 4 people and injured 127 others, including 39 hospital staff. The attacks also caused severe damage to hospital infrastructure. It says in another statement Israeli airstrikes on the town of Al-Marwaniya in the southern Sidon district on Monday killed 6 people and injured many others. The Israel Defense Forces says its forces are continuing military operations in southern Lebanon. The IDF says its 91st Division and Air Force conducted strikes across southern Lebanon targeting weapons depots, military command facilities and other locations identified with Hezbollah armed activity. A suicide drone launched by Hezbollah injured 4 IDF soldiers in southern Lebanon, according to the IDF. Meanwhile, the United Nations once again condemns the continued fighting in Lebanon following an Emergency Security Council session on the conflict.
Despite ongoing de-escalation efforts, our UNIFIL colleagues in the south continue to observe intense air activity and exchange of fire across the Blue Line and within UNIFIL's own area of operations. As stressed during the Emergency Security Council session yesterday, we call on all parties to exercise maximum restraint and fully adhere to the cessation of hostilities that was agreed to.
Elsewhere, as fighting intensifies, a new round of political talks between Israel and Lebanon in Washington, D.C. is underway. U.S. and Israeli officials say the talks between the Israeli and Lebanese ambassadors to the U.S. began on Tuesday at the State Department as planned, despite recent developments. The 2-day talks, the 4th round of such direct discussions, follow a security meeting between the two sides held on Friday at the Pentagon. Dan Rao, TVB News.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio claims Washington's arms sales to Taiwan is not under review because of pressure from China. Senate Foreign Relations Committee's Chris Coon questions Rubio whether he made the denial Tuesday.
We're constantly talking about Taiwan arms sales, but that in no way is what is holding up our decision-making or the White House's decision-making. It is something the president will have to decide on the timing of when and how that is executed on. It's been approved by Congress. It's been noticed. The money's available.
Late last month, U.S. Acting Secretary of Navy Hung Tao said the country's $14 billion arms sales to Taiwan is paused to ensure it has enough weapons for the Iran war. The number of deaths continue to rise in the Democratic Republic of the Congo as the World Health Organization pushes to contain the spread of the Bundibugyo strain of Ebola. As efforts continue, a major airport in the Congo reopens. Meanwhile, a U.S. health official says it is not wise to bring Americans infected with the virus home, as criticism mounts over the U.S.'s decision to establish quarantine facilities in Kenya. Gloria Feng has the story.
Authorities reopened the national airport in Bunia, the heart of the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Many preventative measures, including hand-washing stations and temperature checks, have been installed ahead of the reopening. This as the International Organization for Migration urges governments to strengthen cross-border coordination, warning that border closures could drive people's movements underground and increase transmission risks. Neighboring Uganda, which records 9 cases and 1 death since the outbreak, meanwhile, has closed its borders with Congo. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is urging communities to seek early treatment for suspected cases and follow safe burial practices to help contain the disease. The WHO says there are 321 cases and 48 deaths confirmed in Congo. In the U.S., Administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Ahmed Oz, says it's unwise to bring U.S. citizens infected with Ebola home and is opting to send the infected elsewhere.
And that's about it. There's a UK base there. We have other people who might be willing to welcome us, and we have our German colleagues as well. So there's many places we can send folks, but sending them across the world, especially when we're not sure what's going on with them, is probably not the wisest move.
The comments came as Kenyans took to the streets on Monday and Tuesday to protest the plan to quarantine Americans in the country. 2 people were killed during Monday's demonstrations outside Laikipia Air Base. Speaking for the first time on the matter, Kenyan President William Ruto says he agreed to the establishment of the facilities based on existing bilateral relations with the U.S. The center, one of 24 being put into force, will also help Kenyans should an outbreak occurs, he says. The U.S. intends to commit $13 million to the partnership with Kenya. Gloria Fang, TVB News.
Latest reports find that without social welfare support, Hong Kong residents need at least $4.6 million in retirement savings to maintain basic living expenses after retirement. Women require even more savings, around $800,000 extra, due to longer life expectancy. Using data from the Census and Statistics Department and the Consumer Council and based on prices as of March this year, the Hong Kong Retirement Schemes Association estimates a baseline retirement living cost of $20,000 per month. A man retiring at age 65 with an average life expectancy of 86 would need around $4.6 million in savings. For the 10% of men who live to 97, the amount rises to $6.6 million. For women whose average life expectancy is 90, will need retirement savings of about $5.4 million. Those planning to live to 100 would need $7.1 million. Housing remains the largest expense, accounting for roughly $8,000 per month.
We found that the biggest factor that leads to the variation to the expenses will be the accommodation style. Another one is the household structure, so whether we have financial dependence linked to the retiree, so that's second factor.
The estimates do not take into account whether the retirees have other assets or lower-cost retirement options, such as retiring in mainland China. It also says the current 5% employers and employees' mandatory provident fund contribution is insufficient for providing adequate retirement protection and suggests stronger incentives for higher contributions. They include separating the current combined $60,000 tax-deductible cap for voluntary MPF contributions and qualifying deferred annuity policies into 2 independent tax deduction limits. The association also called for a larger issuance of silver bonds and infrastructure bonds to help protect retirees against the long-term impact of inflation.
We also call for financial product and related social product innovation that will help to give more options for retirees as they go into the retired stage. Then they can, for example, utilize their income stream and other ways to get healthcare services, medical services, as well as to enhance their social life and contribute back to the society.
Veteran Hong Kong theater maestro and actor Chung King-fai, also known as King Sir, dies at the age of 89. His family says Chung passed away peacefully in his sleep at home. Through a lifetime devoted to the art, Chung left an enduring legacy in not just performing but also theater education that shaped Hong Kong's drama and television industries. Born in Thailand, he moved to Shanghai and Hong Kong during his childhood. A talented runner in his youth, he was also actively involved in drama productions. After graduating from the English department at Chung College, Chung pursued further studies in the U.S. In 1967, he joined TVB as a producer and later became assistant general manager, having overseen the productions of many popular drama series. Chung also established TVB's Artiste Training Program. He later founded the School of Drama at the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts and served as its dean for 18 years. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.